you something that you already experienced today. What woke you up this morning to get you through the door of church? And what wakes you up every morning? There's some weird trends going around. I was looking them up online of how to wake up and just get your body ready for the day. There's some normal ones and some not so normal. And I want to kind of talk through these, figure out how we wake up in the morning. Some simple ones. Don't snooze your alarm. We all know this. There's another trick to this. You can put your alarm clock far away from the bed. So you have to get up and mosey over to it, shut it off to delete that annoying noise from your morning. Some less normal ones. There's some psychologist who says you need to go out as soon as you can in the morning and get natural light and look up at the sun. So people are doing that a lot, which is kind of weird. Exercise, first thing you do when you get out of bed, you put on running shoes and running shorts and you run. That is crazy to me and will never be me, and I think that's a little insane. Another less normal one is a cold shower, not a hot shower. So you don't get out of bed, go to the shower. You crank that thing to cold water and just sit there and shiver, and that apparently wakes up your body. Okay, but there's some more extreme ones. There's the cold plunge. So you don't just go in the shower and feel cold water. You jump in a tub of cold water and just sit there and shake. And apparently, you're going to be freezing for the rest of the day, but at least you're awake. This was potentially the weirdest one I found on the internet. It was tugging your hair. So next time you're tired and just don't want to get out of bed, just pulling your hair. See if it works. I don't know. I haven't tried it. But there's one absurd one. And this is personal to me. It's get a dog. The other night, I was sleeping, and my dog thought it was a good idea to jump up on my neck at 3 a.m. And I woke up. I was very awake, and I was very angry. So you can get a dog and be sure that your dog will wake you up at the absurd hour of 3 a.m. at night. But we can do a lot to get our bodies up and ready in the morning and to prepare us for the rest of the day. But I want to know, what's the most successful way to get up in the morning, to have energy, to be awake? Because all the options I just shared push you away from sleep, but they don't pull you towards anything better. And so I think the best way to get up and have sustained energy and excitement for the day is to be filled with hope. To be sure that there are good things waiting for you in your day. And if you don't believe me, think about how you feel on Christmas morning. Your alarm goes off or your kids run into your bedroom. The first thing that goes through your mind is all the traditions, all the food, all the gifts that you have waiting for you in the rest of your day that you get to look forward to. There are good things waiting for you on Christmas Day. There's no need for hair pulling or cold plunges. You're just ready to go. And this is what hope feels like. This is an amazing feeling. We want this all the time. It's amazing. But I want you to also see this morning that having hope is actually a deeply spiritual experience and feeling. There is actually a war going on in our souls to steal our joy, to choke out our souls, and to fill us with despair. Hope is not something that just brings happiness and joy, but it actually brings spiritual life and spiritual strength. And without it, your soul will surely grow tired. John Tyson, who actually wrote the book Jason was talking about, he's a pastor in New York City. He says this about hope. He says, those without hope have a misinformed or blocked view of the future which poisons their present. And so this morning you may feel not just physically tired, but your soul is tired. Your days feel aimless, your heart lacks passion, you don't even know why. But I'm here to tell you that it's probably because despair has crept into your life. It's blocked your view of the future, and it's poisoned your present. You feel despair in your faith, in your work, in your relationships, your marriage, your work, your schooling. And so if there's any of you in this room who, like, at some point in your life or even right now have felt some lack of purpose, direction, and hope, I'm so glad that you're here this morning because I believe there's good news for you. God wants to wake you up, and he wants to fill you with hope, and he wants to strengthen your tired soul because there's a God who can give us true hope. So this morning we're going to be looking at Isaiah 40. So if you have your Bibles, flip to Isaiah 40. I'm sure you guessed it by now, but we're going to be talking about hope. Nice, you're tracking with me. That's good. And what I want to do more specifically is look at Isaiah 40 and identify 3 symptoms of despair so we can better identify what life looks like when we don't have hope. So meet me in Isaiah 40, but let's get some context to this passage. In chapter 39, Isaiah is basically prophesying that the Babylonian exile is coming, that the Babylonians are going to capture Israel and send them away from the country, and they're going to live in captivity to Babylon. That's what's happening. So 39, it's like bad news bears, this thing's coming, and then there's a long gap, a long pause, and then chapter 40 comes in, and we jump ahead to the end of their exile. So decades go past. The Israelites are filled with despair because they've been in exile for decades. And now Isaiah comes in chapter 40, and he's trying to show them the comfort and the hope and the peace that is coming when God delivers them from Babylon. So that's where we're at, and let's begin reading in verse 12. The first symptom of despair we're going to see is forgetfulness. This is what it says in verse 12. Isaiah says, "Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, or marked off the heavens with the span of his hand? Who has gathered the dust of the earth in a measure, or weighed the mountains on a balance and the hills on the scales? Who has directed the Spirit of the Lord, or gave him counsel? Who did he consult? Who gave him understanding and taught him the paths of justice? Who taught him knowledge and showed him the way of understanding?" So there's a lot of questions Isaiah is throwing at the Israelites. But they're all rhetorical because he knows that the Israelites knew who God was. They knew who measured the waters in his hands. They knew who created the earth. They knew he directed the Spirit, and they knew he was all-knowing and all-powerful, perfectly just, because the Israelites talked about these stories all the time. Around the dinner table, they're sharing about their story with God. They formed their identity, and they saw themselves in God's story. So when they talk about the exile, they say, hey, when we were in Egypt, when we were in the wilderness, when Moses spoke to us, it was their story, their family history, and how they understood their place in the world. But they forgot. And so the lie that they began to believe was that God wasn't actually in control. I mean, how could he after they had lost everything? And I wonder if you have felt this way, like you felt like God has lost control over the world or even of your own little life. He's just absent. But I love the way Isaiah responds to these questions, or with these questions. He says, "Who has gathered the dust of the earth in a measure, or weighed the mountains on a balance and the hills on a scale?" Picture that. Isaiah makes God creating all the earth as we know it, like he's just making cookies in the kitchen, just like weighing it all out. That is how infinite God is. That is how little his creation took him to create. Because the truth is, God is infinite. And his finite creation is well under his control. Now for your life, you're 1 in 8 billion people on the earth. That feels pretty overwhelming, but when God sees that, he's not overwhelmed. He has always seen you, always heard you, and he will not abandon you. He will never lose control over his creation, and he has plenty of time to give to you. In our despair, Isaiah has to remind us that God is the one who created and sustains everything. Because when we lose hope, we also lose our memory. Forgetfulness, the first symptom we see of despair. The second symptom we see of despair is fear. So let's continue reading in verse 15. He says, "Look, the nations are like a drop in a bucket. They're considered as a speck of dust on the scales. He lifts up the islands like fine dust. Lebanon cedars are not enough for fuel, or its animals enough for a burnt offering. All the nations are as nothing before him. They are considered by him an empty nothingness." He continues in verse 23. He says, "He reduces princes to nothing and makes judges of the earth like a wasteland. They are barely planted, barely sown. Their stem hardly takes root in the ground. And when he blows on them, they wither, and a whirlwind carries them away like stubble." So imagine you're an Israelite during this time. Your home, your church, your land, everything good about your city has been destroyed. Now you're in Babylon, you're oppressed. Everything your family owned has been taken away from you. You're being told how to live by a king who's not your own, and the country you live in is not for you, but they have full authority over you. How are you feeling? Pretty stinking terrible, I bet, right? Like you're tired, you're confused. What's going on? Where's my home? Where's my family? But more than that, you're just scared. You're scared that you felt so secure in your home and it can so easily be taken from you. You're scared because you don't know how long this will last, and you're scared because you're powerless as a foreigner in this oppressive country. And so the lie you begin to believe is that God is powerless. In the face of rulers, in the face of the nations, God does not have power, and he can't protect you or deliver you from them. So you live in this constant fear because the nations and the rulers of the world seem to be the most powerful source of force. But Isaiah is saying this is not the case. The truth is that God can uproot them with his hand, just pluck them out of place. He can blow on the rulers and they will vanish. He has not lost his power or his place in the world, and there is no need to fear. So that's the second symptom of despair we see in the Israelites in this passage. And the third is idolatry. Let's continue reading in verse 18. He says, "With whom will you compare God? What likeness will you set up for comparison with him? An idol? Something that a smelter casts and metal worker plates with gold and makes silver chains for? A poor person contributes wood for a pedestal that will not rot. He looks for a skilled craftsman to set up an idol that will not fall over." So here's what was happening. Like while the Israelites were in Babylon, in exile, they saw what had happened to them, and they lost all hope that God had power. They lost all hope that God was in control. And so the like practical, logical conclusion was, oh, our God is not the most powerful God in the world. We should try out like these Babylonian gods, because clearly they rule over us. Maybe their gods are more powerful than our own. They began to believe that idols would give them what they've been wanting from God. I think that's crazy. Isn't that crazy? Like, can you believe doing this, worshiping a little man-made silver or gold idol and actually believing that you could receive something from it? That's crazy. If we saw that, we'd be like, what the heck is going on? But then we think about it and we're like, oh, wait, we can imagine that because we do this all the time. We take the things that are not God and we ask them to give us things that only God can give us. We idolize wealth. We idolize recognition. We idolize power, food, alcohol, our career, even religion, our image, sex, entertainment. And so when we're in this season of despair, our hearts begin to replace God with idols. This is what's happening to the Israelites. But I wonder what would happen if we today began to worship our idols as the Israelites worshiped the Babylonian idols. Okay? Picture this with me. So you go to a friend and you bring him like all your jewelry and you're like, hey, melt this down. You're going to make this beautiful hamburger. And I'm going to worship it and I'm going to bow down to it because this is the hamburger God. This is the food idol. And I'm going to pray to it until I feel like the deeper hunger of my soul is fully satisfied by this food. Ridiculous. Okay, what about a different idol? We take our metal to a friend, they melt it down, they make a trophy, and we're like, okay, we're going to sing songs to this trophy until we feel the approval and the affirmation that we've always longed for. That would be weird as well. Okay, what about an idol of TV? We have this like gold TV in our living room and we sit before it and we like pray to it. And we say, hey, TV, I'm going to give you all my free time. I'm going to give you all my ambition, my dreams. I'm going to give it up to you so I can spend time with you until my soul feels rested and until the ignored issues in my life magically disappear. We would all see that and be like, what is happening? That would be so wild to us. It seems like complete foolishness, but if we're honest, like we have all expected idols to fulfill us in ways that they cannot. We have all made sacrifices to idols to worship them. We've given them our time, our affection, our attention to get things that only God can give us. What if we treated our idols and saw our worship to our idols as true worship? But the truth is that idols are powerless. They give us scraps of happiness in exchange for our hearts. Verse 20 says, a poor person contributes wood for a pedestal that will not rot. He looks for a skilled craftsman to set up an idol that will not fall over. I think this verse is hilarious because the person's trying to find this pedestal, this thing to place this idol on that they're about to worship so it can stand up. Idols can't even stand up on their own. How are they going to serve us? They simply cannot compare to God. But when your soul is tired and when you're full of despair, your heart wants idols to stand. So idolatry is the last symptom of despair that we see. And now Isaiah transitions to conclude chapter 40. And I want us to see at this point that like hope and despair and the battle between the two is actually very spiritual. The Israelites, full of despair, it led them to fear, forgetfulness, idolatry. That is a very spiritual battle that's going on. And so we, as believers, have to fight for hope. And Isaiah is going to help us to see what this looks like. So look with me at verse 25. He says, to whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal? Asked the Holy One. Look up and see who created these, who brings out the stars by number. He calls them all by name. Because of his great power and strength, not one of them is missing. Jacob, why do you say, and Israel, why do you assert, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my claim is ignored by my God? Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the whole earth. He never becomes faint or weary. There is no limit to his understanding. He gives strength to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Youths may become faint and weary, and young men may stumble and fall, but those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not become weary. They will walk and not faint. Isaiah has one command to wake up the Israelites from their despair. It's not to snap out of it, like snap out of your tiredness. Just get on track. Try harder to ensure your life is in perfect alignment with God's. No, his one command is simply to look up and see who God is. Because as we look up, we see a strong and powerful and caring God who sees us in our tiredness. And as we look to him, he restores our hope. So, church, if your soul is tired this morning for any reason, take your eyes off your weakness and look to him. Your needs, your wants, and your battles are not hidden from him. He sees it all. And when we are weak, he is strong. When you are blind to what is happening in your life, in the world around you, he knows exactly what's going on. When your soul is tired, weary, and powerless, he will renew your strength. But it gets better. Here's how I want you to imagine and see the hope that we have as believers. How many of you like hiking? Nice. So good. Wow, this is a good illustration. We're going to love this one. How awful would it be if I was like, hey, we're going to go on a hike today. Get your boots. Let's go out. You show up, and you're at a high school track. And we're just going to walk laps. That's our hike. That would be brutal. Because one, you're literally walking in circles. But two, to have a good hike, you need to have a destination that's worth the hike. And you need to know that the hike is actually rewarding along the way. I think I could last maybe a mile just like trekking around a track. But you take me to the mountains, I can go 10 miles, maybe 20. I don't know. But I remember hiking a mountain in Colorado for the first time a few years ago. And like as you're hiking up this massive mountain, you're in the trees, but you can every now and then like see the peak. And as you see the peak, you'd wonder how amazing the view will be when I get up there. And it's what kept me going. There was elevation. Like it was the first day we were in Colorado. My lungs were not used to the oxygen not being in the air. What the heck? So I was like feeling sick and tired and winded, like 10 steps in. There's rough terrain, there was snow. But what made the hike even better was along the way, there were like little lookouts, little views. You could turn around and be like, oh my gosh, look at all these mountains. They are gorgeous. And those would give me just a glimpse of what it might look like when I reach the peak of the mountain. Today, our hope is complete in Jesus. He went to the cross to pay for our sins so we can look to our future. We can see it and be sure that there are good and glorious things in front of us. And if you're a follower of Jesus, your hope is secured in eternity that you will spend in God or with God in heaven forever. But before then, you have the hope of seeing God's kingdom come in the world around you and in your life today. Like you don't have to wait. You can experience those glimpses today. Jason preached on the Lord's Prayer, and this is what God means when he says, Jesus means when he says to pray for your kingdom to come on earth as it is in heaven. God is establishing his kingdom and his reign, and we get to see glimpses of that every single day. And for those of you who are not followers, or for those of you who are followers of Jesus, I want you to remember this. Like when you wake up in the morning, you can set your mind on the glorious eternities that are waiting for you in heaven. But you can also pray for God to reveal glimpses of these glories throughout your day today. You can ask him to use you to usher in his kingdom into your world and your life. And for those of you who do not know Jesus, this hope can be secured for you today. Your soul will forever be tired and aimless and restless and weak until you find hope and strength in God. Okay, a room like this of people. I don't know how many people are in here. Maybe 80, 100. I'm not good with estimates. I'm not going to try. But imagine if this room, all of us, were filled with hope in the good news of the finished work of Jesus Christ. What a weapon we could be for God's kingdom in our city. And I want to speak this to you this morning, to some of you students. Where are my students? Come on, first row, let's go. Students, the world you live in desperately needs students who have hope in Jesus, and to have that hope outweigh the growing pandemic of despair that plagues your generation. My heart breaks for you as I read about the growing rates of anxiety and depression and loneliness amongst college students. But statistics cannot steal the hope I have in God's plan for you guys. I have seen the gospel set too many hearts on fire and work through too many students to change too many students' lives to think that God has lost his power amongst your generation. And I want your souls to be filled with hope and strengthened so you can stand in my place and say to the next generation of college students, God is not done here and you're next. Professionals, most of you have jobs. Where are my professionals at? Nice. The working class, we love that. Professionals, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how many people you oversee, how much you get paid, or how appreciated you feel in your job. Your work matters to God. And the good work you do actually brings glory to him. So I want you to be filled with hope that even the smallest task that you do, God can use it to usher in his kingdom to your workplace. You have no idea the impact that your faithful presence in a cubicle can have amongst your coworkers. So be faithful with the vocation God has given you in this season and be filled with hope, knowing that when you work for God's glory, you never work a day in vain. Parents, where are my parents at? Nice. Parents are tired today. Amidst the craziest and busiest and most chaotic years of your life, I want you to be comforted that God is doing 10,000 things in your kid's life, and you may be aware of 3. Amidst the pressures that you feel to be the perfect parent and to raise the perfect kids, be comforted that there is grace when you fall short and that God is in pursuit of your kids when you are not. I want you to be filled with hope, knowing that however chaotic this season is, or how tired you may feel, or how worried you are for their future, God will use your presence in your children's lives to prepare them for the years ahead. It's only a season. Enjoy every moment of it because it's going to be okay. And dads, it's Father's Day. Got to talk to the dads. You are leaders and teachers and disciplers of the next generation. One of the greatest. Wow. I knew this would be emotional, but not this emotional. Okay, I got this. One of the greatest gifts God has given me in my life is a father who has always been just filled with God-given hope. Amidst a lot of uncertainty in raising 4 boys, Dad, you had the confidence in God's plan for each of our lives. Even when none of us were following Jesus, you had a rock-solid faith that he was in pursuit of us and that he had a good plan for our lives. And that has left one of the... Why did I look up? And that has left one of the biggest impacts on my life ever. And fathers, you have a unique role to lead your families in filling them with hope. Knowing that God's plan for their future is good. Knowing that God has something amazing for them when they grow up and become who he has created them to be. And so you have a role in filling your family, filling your kids, filling your marriage, filling your life around you with hope. And for the whole church, I just want to leave you with the words of Isaiah. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the whole earth. He never becomes faint or weary. There is no limit to his understanding. He gives strength to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Church, Jesus has given us hope for eternity and hope for today. So would you pray with me that our hearts would be strengthened?